Day by day, what happens in her mind when you disappear. Old Stoic wisdom. He who is brave is free. Seneca. What if I told you that your absence can be more powerful than your presence? Not in anger, not in pride, but in stillness. When you stop reaching, stop explaining, and release the need to prove your worth, something unexpected happens. You don't fade away. You become etched in her memory. Because silence, true, intentional silence, isn't empty. It echoes. It makes space in her mind where your words used to fill the room. And over time, that space becomes impossible to ignore. When a man walks away, not out of spite, but from self-respect, he doesn't create distance. He creates depth. In the stillness of your retreat, she begins to feel something new, your absence speaking louder than any message ever could. Most men wear themselves thin trying to be enough. They send messages, they justify, they negotiate their own peace just to be seen. But the moment a man stops seeking permission to be valuable and simply knows he is, everything changes. Not because she finally recognized him, but because he finally recognized himself. This isn't about playing hard to get, it's about becoming hard to forget. This is self-mastery, not manipulation. It's the quiet conviction of a man who no longer fights for space in someone else's world because he's claimed his own. When you leave with grace, when your departure is peaceful, not punitive, you don't vanish from her story. You become the unwritten chapter she keeps rereading in her mind. And day by day, something begins to shift within her. Your silence becomes a mirror. Your absence becomes a question. And the man who once felt ignored becomes impossible to escape in thought. In this video, we'll explore what happens in her mind, day by day, when you withdraw with dignity and let your presence speak through your absence. If you're a man who values clarity over chaos, self-possession over approval, and ancient wisdom over modern noise, you're in the right place. Let's begin. Day 1. She doesn't flinch. Don't mistake her calm for indifference. Don't let the quiet deceive you. On that first day when you go dark, when your voice fades like a song playing its last note in the distance, she doesn't fall apart. She doesn't reach. She doesn't run. She simply carries on, her steps as steady as ever. Why? Because women, especially those who've danced in and out of affection more times than they care to admit, are used to being chased. They've been admired, pursued, put on pedestals. They expect the echo of footsteps behind them, eventually. That expectation isn't arrogance, it's conditioning, and old patterns run deep. So, when you disappear, she shrugs it off. Maybe you're just busy. Maybe you're pulling that tired trick, playing hard to get. Maybe, like the others, you'll drift back into her orbit, orbiting her gravity as if you had no choice. That's the story she knows. That's the ending she expects. Don't blame her for it. She's seen this movie too many times to count. But here's what changes the game this time. You're not pretending. You're not ghosting to provoke a reaction. You're not manipulating her attention. You're not using silence like a weapon to wound or win. No, this is different. This is discipline. This is old Stoic wisdom in action. You're not punishing her. You're preserving you. You've simply stopped investing energy where it was not met, not matched, not honoured. You're no longer a performer in a play you didn't write. And that shift, that right there is where Iron Mind begins. Be clear, this isn't passive aggression. This isn't emotional sabotage. This is peace, the rare kind that comes when a man reclaims himself, when he stops chasing validation and begins living by Stoic principles. You're not angry. You're not bitter. You're not playing games. You're just done, quietly, completely, finally, done. She doesn't flinch because she doesn't yet see what you've seen. She doesn't sense the gravity of your absence, yet. But make no mistake, the silence that seemed forgettable on day 1 will echo louder with every hour that follows. It will settle into her chest like a cold draft she can't shut out. Not because of what you said, but because of what you didn't. That's the weight of a man who lives by old Stoic wisdom. That's the strength of an iron mind. You must understand, this is not the beginning of a power struggle. It's the end of a performance. Don't go back. Don't check in. Don't send mixed signals. Be silent not to punish, but to protect. Be absent not to provoke, but to preserve your peace. Let your silence speak the truth your words never could. Because the moment you stop chasing what doesn't nourish you is the moment you begin embodying the man you were always meant to be. And she, so used to the chase, so sure of your return, won't know what hit her when she realizes this time the story doesn't end at her feet. It ends with you, standing tall, untouched, and finally free. Days 2 to 3, a subtle shift begins. By the second or third day, something invisible starts to move. It's not fireworks, it's not screaming silence, it's still, but different, like walking into a room and sensing someone just left. That's what your absence becomes, a subtle disturbance in her internal weather. You were consistent, solid, grounded, a man who didn't hover but was there. Predictable, not in a boring way, but in the way a lighthouse is to a lost ship. Now nothing, no message, no emoji, no clever reply, just space and silence. She doesn't freak out, not visibly. She'll sip her coffee, text a friend, laugh at a meme. She tells herself you're probably busy. Maybe you're reflecting, taking time, practicing those ancient Stoic rules. Right? She even convinces herself that this space is good. Look at me. She thinks, unbothered, empowered, but that's just the surface. Underneath, her mind begins to search, not frantically, just curiously, almost involuntarily. She scrolls through old texts, ones that used to make her smile, checks your profile, not to comment, not to like, just to see, is he still there? Still him? And then it hits her. You're not gone, but you're not present either. And that's what unsettles her. Because here's the truth. When a man pulls back without explanation, it creates a vacuum, and nature and a woman's heart abhors a vacuum. You're no longer following the script. The moment you step off that expected stage, you become something else, a mystery. And the unknown, it stirs more emotion than any love poem ever could. She starts to wonder, not just where you went, but why. Was it something she did? Something you saw? Are you thinking of her at all? This isn't yet about missing you. This is about dissonance, a crack in the rhythm. And don't be fooled. Direct rejection stings, but ambiguity lingers. It forces her to fill in the blanks. And humans, we're terrible at that. We always assume the worst. This is where practical stoicism comes into play for you. Don't react. Don't explain. Don't overplay your hand. Be still. Be deliberate. Silence, when used wisely, is not absence. It is authority. Understand this in those quiet days. Days 2 and 3. You are speaking volumes. Without words, without effort, without chasing. That is the power of restraint. That is one of the paths of wisdom. You don't need to teach her a lesson. You don't need to punish or prove. You simply need to be gone just enough that she feels the difference. Not hurt, not abandoned, just out of reach. And in that space, her perception of you changes. You're no longer the man she had. You've become the man she's watching. Remember, when you master yourself, the world reacts. When you detach with clarity and purpose, not pettiness or games, you walk the paths of wisdom that few men dare tread. Be that man. If this resonated with you, like, share, and subscribe for more timeless wisdom rooted in ancient philosophy and human nature. Let's keep this energy strong. Comment below to remember, my silence speaks louder than words. That's your power. Quiet strength. Calm presence. Let her wonder. Drop that affirmation in the comments if you're walking in purpose, not panic. Days 4 to 5. The absence feels heavier. By day 4 or 5, your absence starts to speak. Louder than words, louder than pleas or promises. It creeps into her quiet moments, not in chaos but in stillness. She notices the space you used to occupy, not when the world is loud, but in the pauses, in the lull between messages, the silence before sleep, the casual scroll of her phone when your name doesn't appear. She's checking, not because she's desperate, but because hope is persistent. A subtle tug, a whisper she can't ignore. Your name used to be steady, predictable, comforting. Now, it's gone. And in its place is stillness. This is not a tactic. This is not manipulation. This is stoicism. This is self-mastery. Epictetus taught, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. Your silence isn't absence, it's presence with power. The power of a man who's no longer ruled by impulse. The strength of a man who does not chase what does not return willingly. And this unnerves her. It shakes her more than anger ever could. She expected noise. She expected the usual male scramble for validation. But what she gets instead is a man anchored in himself. A man who follows the old path of the Stoics. Restraint, clarity, discipline. He who is not a slave to his emotions commands them, says Stoicism. You are that command. You are still and strong, still and undeniable. You're not reacting. You're responding to life on your terms. Your silence is not empty, it is full of meaning, full of depth, full of quiet confidence that wins without lifting a finger. In a world obsessed with reaction, your calm becomes revolution. She skips the songs now, not because she doesn't like them, but because they remind her of when things were certain, of when she felt seen. She wonders if you'll reach out, but you don't. And that makes all the difference, because now she's unsure, uncertain. She doesn't know how this ends anymore. And that uncertainty, that's power. That's stoicism. Win. Don't crumble. Don't chase. Don't explain. Stand still. Be unmoved. Be undeniable. Be the man Epictetus wrote about. First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Let your silence be your discipline. Let your restraint echo. That's how men win. Not through noise, through control, through presence, through stillness. You're not just gone. You've arrived, in your own power. Days 6 to 7. The questions begin to echo. Days 6 to 7. This is when the real storm begins. Not outside. Inside her. Not the weepy kind of missing you she'd confess after a second glass of red. No, this isn't about heartstrings or late-night longing. This is about control. The kind she thought she had. The kind that made her feel secure. That illusion is cracking. She never expected silence from you to last this long. You were supposed to break, just a little. A short message, a breadcrumb of weakness. That's what the pattern trained her to expect. But you didn't flinch, you didn't fold. You stayed centered, unmoved. And that, my friend, is where the unraveling begins. Suddenly, her mind is not the fortress she believed it to be. It becomes a chamber of whispers. Did I misread him? Was I just a placeholder? Is he with someone else? These questions come uninvited, creeping through cracks in her certainty. She won't ask them out loud. She'll carry them in silence, heavy and looping. Each echo grows sharper, louder, and no, it's not just your absence she's feeling, it's the quality of your absence. The calm, the quiet, the complete lack of performance. You're not angry, not wounded, not trying to spark a reaction. You've simply stepped back, cleanly, fully, like a man who's learned the iron mind is forged in stillness. That's what cuts through her pride, like a blade your peace, not noise, not manipulation, just a quiet, undeniable confidence. And it shakes something ancient in her, because you've done what most men won't. You've chosen yourself, and you've done it without drama. That's old Stoic wisdom in motion. That's the power of Stoic principles. Stand tall, say less, show more. Be the calm in her storm, not the storm itself. Now, she's not just wondering where you are. She's wondering who she was to you, and more importantly, who she is without your attention. You've done nothing loud, but everything loud has now begun inside her, because your silence isn't empty. It's full of purpose, direction, self-respect. And that is the rarest thing a man so grounded he doesn't need to be chased or explained. A man who lives not for reaction, but for reason. That's Old Stoic wisdom again. That's what an iron mind looks like in the wild. You didn't disappear to win her back. You didn't retreat to manipulate. You simply stopped showing up for anything that didn't honor your peace. And that, without a word, has said everything. If this message resonates, like the video, share it with someone who needs clarity, and subscribe for more timeless insights. Comment to remember, true strength is found in calm detachment, not in chasing closure. Days 8 to 10. The quiet starts to haunt her? Don't be fooled. Silence isn't passive. It's a force, a declaration, and by day 8, it stops whispering and starts echoing. She's haunted now, not by drama, not by confrontation, but by the stillness you left behind. This isn't just a pause in the conversation. It's a presence. It shows up beside her when she scrolls through her phone. It lies next to her in bed just before sleep. It trails her like a shadow in moments she used to feel safe. You've become the ghost she never expected. Not loud, not angry, but gone. And here's the twist. It's not the absence that confuses her. It's the calm. The kind of quiet that only comes from a man who knows who he is. She searches for traces of you. A liked post, a story view, a clue that she still lives somewhere in your world. But nothing. Just the silence again. This is where Stoic rules come alive. You haven't disappeared to hurt her. You didn't vanish in bitterness. You chose peace, and in doing so, became powerful. That's the paradox of practical Stoicism. You don't scream your worth, you remember it. You must understand, this isn't about playing games or testing loyalty. That's the language of boys. Men speak through boundaries. They choose the paths of wisdom over chaos. So she tells herself lies to keep her pride intact. He's trying to make me chase him. He wants me to reach out, but every hour that passes proves her wrong. You're not baiting. You're not hoping. You've simply stopped. And that, right there, is the moment the regret creeps in. She wasn't prepared for you to walk away without begging, without a scene, without a final word. She expected you to plead, but you remembered who you were, and that made you unreachable. Not by distance, but by dignity. This is the power of inner stillness. This is where practical Stoicism doesn't just guide you, it transforms you. You didn't need to slam a door. You simply closed it, softly, completely. And now, that peace she once prayed for, it taunts her. It lingers in every quiet space that used to comfort her. Remember this. Don't chase what doesn't recognize your value. Be the calm in your own storm. That is the essence of Stoic rules. Because when a man stops chasing, not out of anger, but from awareness, he doesn't lose her. He leaves her with something much heavier. His absence, wrapped in peace. And that kind of silence, it doesn't fade. It stays. Days 11 to 14. Ego cracks. Doubt creeps in. This is when the ego begins to crack, and the quiet storm of doubt sets in. You're gone, but not in bitterness, not in drama, not in protest. You disappeared with dignity, and now, in the stillness you've left behind, she feels it, not all at once, but in subtle ways, lingering longer in front of the mirror, questioning the confidence she once wore like armor. The words you spoke, once brushed off, now echo louder. The laughs that once seemed effortless now feel hollow in retrospect. She replays scenes in her mind, searching for missed cues, wondering if her dismissiveness was actually a fatal misjudgment. She still believes she's in control, thinks she's making the empowered choice not to reach out. But slowly, the illusion of power is slipping through her fingers. Because this time, your silence isn't a tactic. It's not about being missed. It's not manipulation. It's mastery. It's stoicism. It's Epictetus's wisdom in action. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. You're not waiting by the phone. You're not trying to hurt her. You're just focused. You're winning. You've redirected your energy away from proving your worth to anyone else. And instead, you've invested it in your purpose, your health, your discipline, your peace, and that scares her. Why? Because nothing threatens the ego like watching someone thrive without needing validation. Nothing crushes old illusions like seeing the man she once thought needed her. Now walk forward with strength, self-respect, and inner peace. This is Stoicism Win. This is the Epictetus playbook. You've exited the emotional battlefield, and now you're building your empire in silence. Let her wonder. Let the story she thought she was writing fall apart in her hands. Don't chase. Don't explain. Don't look back. That is the power of absence. That is how you win. You must remain grounded. You must stay true to your path. Remember, control is not about forcing outcomes. Control is about mastering yourself. Let her question. Let her ego unravel. Because the moment she realizes you don't need her, everything she believed gets turned upside down. That is when you win. That is Stoicism. That is Epictetus. That is power. And if you find today's content very interesting, please give me a word of encouragement by commenting "very interesting" in the comments section. That is a huge motivation for us. Thank you. Days 15 to 17. Her pride battles her curiosity. This is where the silence starts to hum with meaning. It's no longer just an empty gap in conversation. It's a void she can't fill with noise, not even with distractions. The absence of your voice echoes in all the small corners, the casual updates she used to brush off, the little jokes you'd toss in passing, the effortless way your presence anchored the moment. She's told herself, repeatedly, that she doesn't care, that it's nothing, that pride is strength, but something's shifting, and she can feel it now, like a slow crack beneath the surface. Her pride still puts on a show. Don't message him, don't chase. But curiosity begins to whisper louder. Old Stoic wisdom would say, control only what is yours. And that's exactly what you're doing. You've stepped back, cleanly, calmly, without drama or flinching. And that's the twist in the blade. Your silence is not spiteful. It's surgical. It leaves no trace of anger, no mess to mop up, just the chilling reality of your absence, intentional and unshaken. That's what stings. She wants to poke at your wall now, but not in any way that makes her look vulnerable. Oh no, Stoic principles don't allow that. Instead, it'll be something accidental. A vague lyric posted like a breadcrumb, a blurry memory disguised as nostalgia, a photo that says, "I'm fine," but her eyes give it away. Her attempts are subtle, but deliberate, designed to stir just a flicker of response. One little like from you would be enough. A comment would feel like a win. But you remain silent. You've chosen the path of the iron mind, restraint over reaction. And that's what breaks her rhythm. Because now she has to ask herself the one question pride never prepared her for: what if he truly doesn't need me? She's realizing the truth that old Stoic wisdom has whispered all along. You weren't clinging, you were offering. And now, you've simply stopped. That shift of power isn't loud, but it's thunderous inside her. It makes her sit with something uncomfortable she never held the reins. She thought your availability meant dependence, that your kindness meant pursuit. But with your stillness, you've shattered the illusion. She sees you now, not as the man who needed her, but as the man who chose her. And now, you're choosing distance. That humbles her deeply, because it wasn't rejection that changed the dynamic. It was detachment, quiet, controlled, profound. So don't flinch now. Don't break your posture. This is the point where iron mind meets impact, where Stoic principles prove their value. Let her wrestle with the silence. Let her pride battle her curiosity. Let the space do its work. You must hold the line, not to hurt her, but to reveal something she needs to see, because this isn't about games. This is about clarity. This is about you finally becoming undeniable, not by force, but by absence. That's old Stoic wisdom in motion. Let it work. Days 18 to 20, the fear becomes real. By now, the silence doesn't feel like space anymore. It's not the kind of space where someone's catching their breath or letting emotions cool. No, this kind of silence has sharp edges. It hums in the background like a distant warning siren she can't turn off. It no longer gives her room to think. It presses in. It feels like loss. And not the hypothetical kind she toyed with at first. This is the kind of loss that creeps into the corners of her everyday life. It slips under doors and into her coffee breaks. It shows up in the quietest hours of the night, when she's alone with her thoughts and her phone, especially her phone. She used to wonder, where did he go? Now she's beginning to fear you're not coming back at all. And for the first time, that fear doesn't live in imagination. It's real, heavy, immediate, no longer a passing cloud. It's a storm forming just behind her eyes. She starts saying your name out loud again, not to bring you back, but to remember how it felt when you were around. She slips it into conversation. Casual at first, like an old favourite song she's pretending not to care about, but you can hear it in the voice if you were there. There's a pause, a little hitch, a tension that betrays her. And when she's alone, no pretense, no audience, her guard drops. She scrolls through your profile at 2 a.m, not for memories. She's hunting for signs, any trace that you still feel what she no longer hears. She lingers on old photos, one where you're smiling. That smile used to make her feel like the only one. Now, it makes her question everything. Was I ever really seeing him, or just the version of him I wanted to believe in? That's when the unravelling starts, quietly. You see, she used to tell herself the classic lines, he's lucky to have me. He'll come crawling back. I've got the power here. But one by one, those narratives collapse like empty shells. And rising from the rubble is a quieter, colder truth. You weren't playing a game. You weren't chasing, or manipulating, or trying to win her back. You were living the old Stoic rules, not with arrogance, but with grounded presence. You were offering something few men do in a world full of noise and bravado. Genuine presence, steady energy, quiet respect. And when that wasn't returned with equal care, you didn't throw a tantrum, you didn't plead, you didn't punish. You withdrew, simply, calmly, silently. No drama, no need for a dramatic exit speech, just clarity. That is practical stoicism in motion. That is walking the paths of wisdom, not just talking about them. Now, she sees the difference. This wasn't punishment, it was a boundary. This wasn't manipulation, it was a standard. You didn't disappear to teach her a lesson. You stepped away because you don't beg to be chosen. You don't shout to be heard. That is the power of restraint. That is the essence of the Stoic rules. Never chase chaos. Never lower your standard to meet someone else's confusion. She used to believe she was the prize. But now she's beginning to see what you were offering may have been the true rarity all along. Not everyone knows how to hold masculine presence without needing control. Not everyone lives by the paths of wisdom, where stillness speaks louder than shouting, and leaving in peace is stronger than staying in conflict. So don't go back to prove a point. Don't break the silence to comfort her guilt. Be the man who walks the line with grace, even if your footsteps echo alone. That's not weakness, that's mastery. That's practical stoicism in real time. If you've made it to this point, then you understand true strength isn't in chasing. It's in choosing to walk away with clarity and calm. Most men lash out when disrespected, but not you. You set a boundary and stood by it. That's not weakness. That's rare, masculine power. Comment this to claim it. I walk away not to punish, but to protect my standard. Days 21 to 25. The strategizing begins. The game changes, but not for you. This is when she starts to calculate. The silence has shattered the illusion of control. Her old narrative gone. What replaces it is a quiet urgency, a deliberate strategy. She's not desperate yet, but she is shifting. The effortless confidence she once wore like armor begins to falter. Her messages become ambiguous, accidental. Her appearances feel staged, deliberate. She's curating her presence, testing your reaction, baiting the hook. She may toss a casual memory into a message, ask a question she already knows the answer to, or show up in your orbit with laughter a little too loud, steps a little too precise. But you don't respond like before. You don't walk through doors left half open. You don't chase ghosts of connection. Familiarity isn't meaning. Proximity isn't purpose. That's stoicism. That's strength. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." And your reaction is stillness, composure, power. You've stopped dancing to the rhythm of her attention. You've stepped into your center, calm, unshaken, focused. You're not playing hard to get. You've simply won. You've mastered yourself, and that mastery confuses her. She was ready for resistance. She was ready for pursuit. What she wasn't ready for is a man who is unmoved, indifference grounded in peace. That's the rarest kind of power. That's stoicism-win. And now, the balance shifts. Not because you acted, but because you didn't. You don't chase what fades. You don't react to noise. You observe. You rise. You focus on your mission. Let her feel the absence of your validation. Let her see what it means when a man rewires his soul. You must live like the Stoics taught, untouched by chaos, centered in principle, unshaken by fleeting desire. Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants, said Epictetus. She was once a want. Now, you want freedom. You want peace. You want power from within. This is your edge. This is your time. Hold the line. Command your space. Win by doing nothing. Because nothing is louder than silence from a man who has evolved. A man who no longer explains, chases, or waits. A man who moves forward. That's stoicism-win. That's how you master life. Days 26 to 30. She's no longer curious. She's invested. At this stage, your silence is no longer just space. It's weight. It's the cold steel of old Stoic wisdom pressing against the soft fabric of her emotions. The absence of your presence, your voice, your gaze, it stopped being a puzzle a long time ago. Now, it's a question she feels in her bones. It stirs her in places she didn't even know had gone silent. And here's the twist. She's not scrolling through your social anymore, not searching for signs or symbols. She's not curious. She's convicted. What once was passive intrigue has become personal investment. That's the shift. That's the power of disappearing with purpose. And no, this isn't about playing games. This is about contrast. The defining force that Stoic principles remind us separates the essential from the excess. There are no more breadcrumbs from her. No vague texts. No coy comments disguised as coincidence. That theatre closed. In its place, something real, raw, intentional. She reaches out, and this time her voice carries no script. It's not the flirtation of someone trying to win. It's the quiet tremble of someone finally seeing the cost. There's a softness in her tone now, not born of seduction, but sincerity. Because deep down she knows, you're not just a man who pulled away, you're a man who transformed, who disappeared into the fire and came out forged, an iron mind, shaped by restraint and clarity. Don't mistake her message for a reset button. This isn't some fairy tale where love erases memory. No, you remember the nights you stared into the ceiling, not to wallow, but to wonder, to reckon. You remember the stillness, the silence that didn't echo her name, but revealed your own. That journey inward, governed by Stoic principles, wasn't about punishment. It was protection. You weren't waiting. You were refining, reclaiming your value piece by piece, until it stopped trembling in someone else's hands. That's what she's feeling now. Not loss, reverence. Now, the question isn't whether she'll get a response. The question is whether she's worthy of your time. That's the table she's trying to sit at, the one you no longer offer freely. And why should you? This silence wasn't empty. It was a crucible. It wasn't just about her absence. It was about your emergence. And when she speaks, when she leans in asking not for reaction but reconnection, you must remember. You decide. You, not the man who begged, hoped, or waited, the man who now chooses, because desire fades, alignment doesn't. Be clear. Don't rush. Don't return out of nostalgia or guilt. Be the gatekeeper of your peace. Guard it with an iron mind sharpened by experience. Her vulnerability is beautiful, but beauty doesn't pay the toll. Alignment does. Does she match the path you've walked in these 30 days? Or is she simply admiring the man you became without her? That's the heart of old Stoic wisdom, to remain unmoved by praise, untouched by pleading, anchored in principle, because now, for the first time, your worth isn't up for negotiation. It never was. But now you see it. You feel it, and you carry it, not with arrogance, but with awareness, like a man who remembers who he is, like a man who knows being whole was never about her. It was always about you. And that brings us to the end of this video. Thanks for spending this time with me. Really. If there's one thing I hope you take away, it's this: silence isn't a weapon, it's a mirror. Disappearing, when done with calm and clarity, not confusion or ego, can reveal more truth than words ever could. You're not stepping back to punish her. You're stepping back to remember yourself. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. So here's my honest advice: don't rush to be seen. Don't chase validation. Stand still long enough to feel who you actually are, beyond the noise, beyond the roles, beyond the need to be chosen. Because the man who stands fully in himself doesn't disappear to be missed. He simply stops showing up where he isn't truly seen. If this hit home for you, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment. Your story matters more than you think. Not for likes, not for attention, but for connection. Until next time, take care of yourself, stay grounded, and remember, silence isn't empty. Sometimes it's full of answers.